Some library shelves in Edmonton public schools might look a little bare this coming fall. The school board says it's pulling more than 200 titles from shelves. Books like The Handmaid's Tale, Brave New World, and I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing are just some of the titles set to be removed this fall. While books with 2S LGBTQ plus themes will also be pulled. All are apparently being deemed too sexually explicit for students in kindergarten to grade 12. In a statement to CBC News, the Edmonton Public School Board chair said the books are being pulled because of a government order. It added that the board shares concerns raised by community members and opposed the policy. For reaction to this move, we're joined by Laura Winton in our Edmonton studio, and she is the vice chair of the Canadian Federation of Library Associations. And Laura, appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
So what do you make of the Edmonton School Board's decision to pull more than 200 books, including books like The Color Purple, The Great Gatsby?
I mean, it's certainly upsetting. I don't think it's surprising, given the content of the ministerial order. The Edmonton Public School Board has done the best they can on very short notice with no additional resources to comb through catalogs and pull anything that meets the requirements of that ministerial order. With this order in place, we are the first province in Canada to have explicit censorship in our school libraries. And when you introduce a policy like this, a lot of books are going to get pulled.
Premier Danielle Smith talked about this today. She essentially offered to help the Edmonton Public School Board. Let's just listen to what she had to say, and then I'll ask you about it.
Mm-hmm. So if they need us to hold their hand through the process to identify what kind of materials are appropriate for senior high school students, what kind of materials are appropriate for junior high school students, and what kind of materials are appropriate for elementary school students, we will more than happily work with them to work through their list one by one so we can be super clear about what it is we're trying to do. We are trying to take sexually explicit content out of elementary schools that is inappropriate for me to show on the television news at night, and so it is inappropriate for 7-year-olds to see. That's what.
And the Premier went on to kind of refer to the Edmonton chair's decision as being vicious compliance. What's your response to what the Premier had to say?
I mean, they've put together a ministerial order that states that anything with sexually explicit content has to be removed from all school libraries. And frankly, the books on that list are absolutely incredible pieces of literature, and they include sexual content, and that is developmentally appropriate for teenagers, which is why we really shouldn't have this ministerial order in the first place. This government surveyed the public and asked who should be making decisions about what ends up on school shelves. The resounding answer was librarians, educators, teachers, and school boards, and not the government. And so I think Danielle Smith needs to maybe take a step back here and leave this work in the hands of the people who are trained and educated to do this work, and that is teachers and librarians.
Books with 2S LGBTQ plus themes will be removed. Titles such as Gender Queer and Two Boys Kissing are deemed sexually explicit. Is that what this is really about? And what's the potential that books such as these are on the list by virtue of their themes as opposed to being sexually explicit?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a major concern. We know that the lobby groups like Action for Canada that were behind this ministerial order that lobbied the government successfully to put this in place are explicitly anti-LGBTQ, and the lists that they produce and send out to public libraries threatening legal action if we don't remove those materials are very much focused on 2S LGBTQ plus materials. So, the minister has been very clear that this isn't about that. It's about all sexually explicit material. But I think certainly we're seeing from the lists and the titles that Minister Nicolaides himself cited at the beginning of this that a lot of that material is going to target 2S LGBTQ plus communities and literature.
What did you make of Margaret Atwood's reaction, the author of The Handmaid's Tale, who basically said, oh, you know what, don't read The Handmaid's Tale, kids, your hair's going to catch on fire and you better go get the book before there's book burning. I mean, obviously some seething sarcasm from her, but what did you make of that reaction?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wasn't surprised. Margaret Atwood is known for being, feisty and quite politically active. But I think her point is important whenever we start going down this road. You're going to see materials removed that you don't necessarily want removed. Freedom of expression for children, as well as everybody, is a pillar of a strong democratic society. And when the government starts to get involved and telling us what we and our children can and cannot read and access, that's a problem, and it's a real threat to free thought, free speech, and free expression.
Where do you expect this debate, this issue to go? I mean, what's going to happen next?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. It sounds like the Premier is interested in getting very much into the weeds with the school board on what appears on these lists. I know that Alberta is a province that is, staring down a public service worker strike as well as a teacher strike. So, there's been a lot of talk about whether or not this is really all just a distraction from those larger issues. But regardless, I'm not sure where the resources are going to be to do all of this work on either side, as we see the public service and teachers struggling to just manage, ballooning class sizes and things like that.
And the books are still going to be available outside of schools. So how much of a difference do you expect this move to make when it comes to which books kids choose to read?
I think it'll have a huge impact. I've talked to family members and friends since the list was released, and not a single one of them didn't say, "Oh, I did a book report on that book in high school." Where children encounter literature, the school is often the place where that happens. It's also the setting where they have librarians and educators on hand to help guide them through that material and think critically about it. So removing it from that context is going to have a huge impact. And certainly, as somebody who also happens to be a public library director, I can tell you that our holds lists for all of these titles are suddenly going to be through the roof.
Sparking interest, which I'm sure is the last thing that the Premier wants.
Yeah.
Laura, thank you. Good to talk to you. Laura Winton is the Vice Chair of the Canadian Federation of Library Associations.